Hey, I'm Audra Carroll, and this is Coming in Hot, where my guest and myself mostly talk about mindset theories and real practical ways that you can improve your lifestyle, your relationships, your health, and yourself. Hey guys, I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in to Coming in Hot. So I think we're on episode 17, and we are continuing our conversation with Chuck Huber. And I'm going to familiarize you just in case you've forgotten, but I don't know how you could. Chuck Huber did many voices on Dragon Ball. He also was on My Hero Academia, and you may have even seen him on Star Trek Continues. Many projects that he's done, worked with animation. So that's just, to name a few. But as we continue our conversation, we're going to dive back into cold plunging. We're going to talk some about his childhood, his career, and his future goals. And he discusses with us about how to become masterful of your mindset, conditioning, science, pushing past your limitations, and even shares with us some of the high performers that he looks to. So I hope you enjoy the rest of our conversation. Was there one person that you could say that maybe, did you just grasp this on your own? I guess that would be the first question. Did you grasp this idea on your own, or was there someone that taught you this?
I have. Yeah, I have lots of sources. I am a voracious reader and consumer of all sorts of information. I mean, if I were to go back in time, all the way to when I was a kid, like Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins and all the people who used science to say, hey, your brain has a way of working that is functional in a way that's non-functional. Why don't you actively participate? I suppose where it started, I used to do a lot of memorization techniques. Mnemonics used to be one of my favorite sort of ways. And once I discovered your brain had ways of memorizing things that were kind of magical, I was like, I wonder what other magical things we can do with our brains. And that led into, authoring your own perspective every day. Every moment you try to be in charge of what you're saying about what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of all the sort of self-help people. Stephen Covey and his, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I start to look at habits and routines. Yeah. And Tim Ferriss and his 4-hour work week and 4-hour body and Tools of Titans. And, he describes all the highest performers in the world and says, well, what do they do? And it's simple things, like making your bed every morning is an indicator of success. Mm-hmm. And I teach my kids, you got to make your bed every morning. You just have to do it. Mm-hmm. You just feel better when your bed is made. It's just a thing. And doing things, a lot of what we do is avoiding doing things that we're eventually going to do anyway. And there's a French, it sounds better in French, but it's the phrase is eat the frog. Mm-hmm. And it's a phrase that means do the thing that you don't want to do first. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is that you're dreading or avoiding for the day, go ahead and get that out of the way. Whatever is bothering you the most, I don't want to do that thing. I don't want to do it. That's your signal. That's like a strong signal emotion. You go, if you are feeling anxiety and tension over that, you give yourself such a gift by attacking it first and being like, that's the thing I'm going to do immediately when I wake up. My best days are when I wake up and I just immediately hit all the things I don't want to do, starting, right at right at 5:30 in the morning. And then by 6:30, I've done 10 things that I didn't want to do that day. And I'm like free to do what I actually want to do, free to write or connect or work or whatever it is, or just goof around or sit in the yard, because you feel masterful when you, I used to have a challenge. Like I would wake up and I had a cat. So when I was in college, I had a cat and I hated doing the cat box, but I hated when the cat box got over full and would stink. So then this was when I discovered Eat the Frog. I would make it a challenge to, as soon as I woke up, I would try to see how quickly I could get to the cat box and empty it. So I would like wake up and just immediately go straight to the cat box and try to empty the cat box. Like within 20 seconds of waking up, I'm dealing with cat poop.
That was your number one job.
That was my number one job because I hated it. But it was like, it felt so good to be like still just like barely getting sleep out of my eyes and washing my face and hands after doing the cat box. And I haven't even had coffee yet, but I know the cat box is clean. Like the rest of my day was great because I hated having a dirty cat box, but I hated cleaning the cat box.
Oh, totally. See, I just bought an automatic one recently.
Those are good. We have the Breeze litter system, which is really nice. It's like pellets that you don't have to really empty or change, and you just have to scoop it's nice. It doesn't smell bad. You have to put a little pee pad underneath, but
that ain't bad.
Yeah. Well, we got the cat box. We put a cat door into the garage. And so now all our cat stuff is in the garage. It's a little easier to manage.
I did the same thing. Ours is in the laundry room, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm like, just cut a hole in the door and put a cat door in.
Yep.
We did the same.
Yeah.
You talking about I thought about when you said, that's your signal, the anxiety. All I could think of is, that's your Batman signal right there.
Right.
And I actually did a mind hack. That's what I call a mind hack on myself.
Sure.
You were talking about that because, like you said, when you have anxiety, and so many people have anxiety in so many varying levels, they don't even realize it's anxiety. I truly believe. But we will do that. We will let 10,000 things pile up because we think that we don't have the time to do it, when we really spend all of our time thinking about we don't have the time to do it instead of doing it. So my mind hack is I would ask myself when any random little thing would come up, I would say, can I do this right now?
Right.
And the whole thing is I had to honestly ask myself, could I physically do this right now? And if I could physically do it, then I did. And I found that 9 times out of 10, exactly what you said. Well, not 9 times out of 10, every time I would accomplish more in a day, and in a shorter period of time, I would have more energy, sustainable energy, happier, just wonderful mindset when I would actually answer that question honestly and follow through with if I could do it or not.
Yeah, especially in communications with other humans. Like when you have a task that involves, I have to go talk to somebody, I have to tell somebody something, I have to communicate on a project about something. Somebody wants something from me and I have to give them information, fill out a form. Any of those types of tasks that are proactively involved with other people and you find yourself avoiding them, get on those quick. Because number one, like talking to other humans, especially in this day and age, makes you a different human. Being able to have conversations and difficult conversations, or conversations that aren't necessarily like challenging emotionally, but like, well, how do we do this project we're talking about? It's going to be a give and take, a back and forth. Those conversations can be complicated, and therefore I like to avoid them. I try to avoid them. But you're right. When I attack them first, when I get them done first, well, it's like it's even things like an interview like this, or fan requests, or requests from conventions, or requests from producers. My rule is I say yes, and then I try to get it on the calendar as soon as possible. When would you like to do it? Yes, let's do it. When? Let me look at my calendar. Right. Let me shorten this down to one email exchange. I'd like to talk to you. How about now? Offer up a time. A lot of times people will be like, great, they picked a time. Let's do that. Or you'll pick a time that's bad and they'll reply with a time that's good. And so suddenly you're engaged and active in a way that isn't worrying.
Yeah.
Because worrying does almost nothing.
Yeah. And I could not agree with you more. I've had a lot of social anxiety in that way where I don't know if this would make any sense to you. I've never thought about it in this way, but I don't think I was ever really a person who had anxiety out in public around people, but just
Okay.
specifically what you were talking about to deal with projects or I went for a long time where I wouldn't even check my voicemail.
Oh, right.
Like really odd things, but put me out in public and I can sit and talk to anybody all day long. But you call my phone and I don't know who you are and you leave a voicemail, I probably will never figure out you ever left a voicemail, you know, because
Yeah,
it gave me anxiety.
yeah, it's a different, yes. And anxiety, a lot of, I don't know, sometimes it comes from past traumas, integrating stories about, you know, I still have anxiety from the doorbell sometimes. I'm like, oh, who's here? You know, and most of the time it's just an Amazon or a UPS delivery. But you know, it's a different mindset when you're able to say, you know, these are things I expect, and I expect to have to deal with them. And so when you put on the expectation that you won't have to deal with things, there's a lot of anxiety. But when you say, I most definitely will have to answer a call and return a call almost every day, or, you know, and you make that a thing that you're primed for, then when it happens, you don't waste the energy trying to deny it. And then you engage with it quickly and move on to the next thing. And that's, we say that in classes all the time too. I say, if you want different things to happen in your life, you have to do different things. And one of the ways of having different things happen is to engage with other humans who have different patterns. And then your pattern's going to be interrupted and doing something different in synchronicity with their pattern. And you end up moving in a different direction. So even if just slightly different can make a big difference over the long haul.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Have you ever watched The Secret? You probably have, thinking about some of the people you've talked about on
The
Netflix.
Secret, no, I know of it and I kind of know the gist of it. But no, I've never studied it or read it or any of that.
Yeah, I have not read the book. I watched the documentary, and that was the catalyst that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, rubbed my sensibilities the wrong way, and really got me to looking at opening up my mind to the idea that maybe I was not really doing everything I could do, you know, in my own life as far as being purposeful and things like that. Is there any particular book or anything that got you started? Because I know, like you said, you listen to Tony Robbins and all that. Love him. And, you know, I'm a huge Tom Bilyeu fan and things like that. So there's certain people that I definitely went to, but The Secret was definitely the beginning for me.
Yeah, that was the beginning for a lot of people. That was an important work for many. For me, I don't know. It's been so long. I'm trying to see what's on my. I'm so I don't want to say I'm so engaged now that I don't need the reminders because I need them every day. But I do a lot of teaching. My favorite thing is scientific studies. I like to see what the science is saying, and I like to extrapolate on those scientific. I am a big fan of taking a little bit of science and seeing what you can do with it. So that if you believe something can happen, it makes it more possible. If you smile more often, it makes you happier. If you do this, then this happens, you know, and you start to layer those things in your life. So, you know, I like psychological studies that show very specific things. Yes. There's a study I quote in class all the time about parents teaching young children how to do a puzzle. And then they bring the children back 20 years later and have them do the puzzle and have them quote their thoughts as they're doing the puzzle. And their thoughts, their free will thoughts, were exact quotes that their mothers had given to them as children when doing puzzles. And so you extrapolate something like that out and say, wait, our thoughts are collections of quotes from other people mostly. You know, challenge those quotes. Make sure you want them as part of your story. And then there's a famous bite test experiment, which, you know, shows if you bite like that and engage the smile muscles, you activate the happy centers in your brain. If you bite a pencil like that, it'll activate the sort of angry or sad parts of your brain. And I extrapolated that out into a whole series of coursework for incarcerated drug addicts. And our focus was on strengthening and enabling the facial mask. And because we noticed that a lot of drug addicts have a similar facial mask. A lot of the drug counselors would say, oh, I can see a heroin addict from a mile away. And I'd say, how? And he said, it's just they have that mask, that heroin mask. And it's different from different drugs have different effect on the face. The face is trying to communicate something. And so, I am a big fan of variety being a bulwark against degradation, so that if you are worried about where your life is going or what is happening, go learn to juggle or learn a magic trick or watch something different than you would normally watch, or walk. If you always walk the path in the park one way, walk it the other way, or go to a different park, or don't walk, take your bike or get a scooter. Do anything different. And variety, especially in thought and in facial strengthening, that is going to give you a flexibility that leads towards growth. So I don't know if there's any one author. I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. His podcast has a lot of really interesting information. I like high performing people. I like to see what they think and see if I want to think that way. For a while, I wanted to be like, I want to be the top of, and now I don't want to be the top of anything. I just want to, enjoy my house and my kids and hopefully some grandkids later on. And, I don't need to be the top of the pyramid anymore. And consequently, that tends to raise you up anyway, because you're not interested in it. And so suddenly they're like, oh, that's the lights we want to shine. So
I think it's an interesting place to be in when you are sick. Oh, what was I going to say? Do not mess this up, because it was good too, man.
All right.
Oh, man.
It'll come back to you, I'm sure.
I know. Probably when we're done. Let's be sure. Probably when we're done.
A few moments later.
I love all of this type of talk. I mean, I just absolutely love it. What you're talking about, the brain, that's what I was going to say a minute ago. I am so super excited looking ahead and you're definitely into more in-depth research than I've gotten into yet. I'm still more of on the mindset part and working into how the psychological part does all these great, amazing things, But like I was telling my mom the other day, I said, I'm so excited for the future. I said, because I feel like the more we tap into understanding how the mind works, the more we're going to be able to heal and elevate just as human beings and people individually. I think so many people are blind and so not understanding of how much healing there is literally within the mind physically.
Yeah.
I'm like so excited for those things, because I would not have gotten up out of that bed after 3 years had I not changed my mind.
Yep.
And it was a long process, and I'm still not done. I'll never be done.
There's something I like Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs tend to. I'm terrified of what they go through. It seems I'm not. I'm an okay swimmer. I'm not a strong swimmer. I had a near drowning thing when I was little. That still traumatizes me to this day. I'm still working through it. I'm still learning how to deal with the water. I still worry about it. But one of the things that the Navy SEALs say is that when you are, and this came from my hiking partner, I do long hikes in the mountains. And my hiking partner said that he had a Navy SEAL tell him that when you think you are done, when you think you are absolutely flat out, cannot move another muscle, you're at about 40%.
Wow.
So you still have 40% left to go. When your limit has been reached physically, you still have reserves that you don't even know are there. Mm-hmm. And this we know from the literature, stories of survival, that of course, when it comes to survival, people have reserves that they don't ever bother tapping on a daily basis. Not that you have to exhaust yourself every day physically. That's not the goal. But the main part of it is that mental choice. I choose to keep going. I choose to get up out of this bed. I am making the decisions I am telling this story up here. All the world's problems, everything that's going on, all the bad things, they all exist only up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they exist in the real world too, but your perception of them is between your ears. And it's between your ears and it's within your writer's fingertips. You get to say what you believe about what's happening. You get to make that. Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he's a World War II survivor. Mm-hmm. And he's a psychologist, psychiatrist, neurologist. I forget. He's like a double doctor. Mm-hmm. But he says pain is a gas and it fills the room of your life. And if you are in pain, it's because you probably need to expand your room. And give yourself a little more breathing room, give yourself a bigger perspective. Mm-hmm. I always find when my perspective, I am in the most pain when my perspective is at its narrowest, when I'm thinking about this one thing in this particular order or function or form. And as soon as in sign language, the sign is this, it's you just to get a little perspective, everything's right up here and you just need to push it back. Mm-hmm. Oh, I see now. I can get a better look at it. And to me, that's the most important skill to have, is the ability to sort of expand your perspective into something that makes it survivable.
Oh yeah. The way you say things, I'm telling you. I may need you to write me some stuff.
Sure.
Like you don't have enough to do, like you don't already have a job.
Yeah, there's some people are at some of the students. I've taught about 600 students now, mm-hmm. and been teaching Zoom classes. And it's acting. It's an acting class. We do learn you learn British and Russian and Irish, and we do some character work and some acting work, and you do a monologue. But that's about 50% of the class. The other 50% of the class is developing the skills that give you the habits of identity that make you feel like an actor, make you feel like a performer. What are the habits we need to create so that we have the life we say we want? What are the techniques we can use to make our lives better and stronger? Because I feel like, because I never wanted to be a voice actor. That was not something that happened to me, and I accepted it and was very happy to. But a lot of times I think people come to a class because they want change. They don't necessarily, they think they want a goal or a product, but what they want is the ability to change their perspective. And so I feel like the class does its job best when it focuses a good portion of it on not the outcome or products, but what are your processes? How do I help you tweak your processes so that if you don't, I had one student come to me and he was like, I don't want you to be disappointed because I don't want to be a voice actor. I'm like, why would that disappoint me? I'm like, what do you want to do? He's like, well, I've always wanted to do social work and there's these group homes I want to work in and do sort of acting and voice. And I'm like, that's incredible. Why would you don't have to do anime voice. That's not the world. There's plenty of people to do anime voice work. There's not many to do what you want to do in the group homes in Chicago or whatever. Go do that. That's 100% where you should be focused.
Yeah. Follow that passion.
Yep.
No matter what it is, as long as it's not hurting other people, I guess I should put that disclaimer.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think generally speaking, people don't want to hurt I say that. I believe there are two flavors of people in the world. I think there are some just evil bastards. And then I think the rest of us are pretty much generally good.
I totally agree. And I think there's more good really in the world than there is really bad. Truly.
I think so too. Yeah. I think if you were to take a sample of 100 people, you'd find maybe all 100 are good, decent people. Maybe it's just 99. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's out of 1,000, there's one that's terrible, but that's still a lot of terrible people. But the problem and I say this with religions or with any organization, is that the loudest, most annoying, horrible people, or the most annoying and horrible people are generally going to be the loudest. The great swath of people who are just good. If you're good, you're kind of quiet. You don't have to yell about it. You're just like, I'm going to do my thing and let it. It's like I always encourage my kids to look at what happens on the internet. And I say, if there's 10,000 people in a Minecraft server and everyone's doing great, but then one person hacks it and screws it up for everybody, I said, that's a good example of what life is like. You know, life is a bunch of people working together to do good stuff, and then a couple of people coming in to try to screw it up.
Oh yeah, it's inevitable, you know. It's
Yeah.
always inevitable. Let's see, what kind of good questions do I have? You know, actually, I do want to ask you about, you know, where you come from in your background. I've looked it all up, and I'm gonna do a good spiel before we, you know, put it all together and everything.
Sure.
But, you know, I definitely wanted to get your background and what you would like to share about your life, because like we talked about before, you're not born into this mindset. You're not, you know, you don't automatically get these tools when you're born of, okay, I know that I need to put all of these steps in order to get from point A to point B, you know, so wherever you would like to start.
I grew up in Chicago and north of Milwaukee, and then in Texas, you know, sort of equal parts in all three places. I grew up thinking I was the poorest of the poor. We had to hunt and fish and grew gardens. It was during the 70s and the recession. But the house I grew up in, we always loved that house, but it was, you know, we thought we were poor. And now looking back on it, it's like a $1.5 million house now on the lake. And it's like, so I grew up in an incredibly wealthy house, but I thought I was poor. We thought we were poor.
And
so,
that's what mattered, correct?
Do what?
And at that time, I mean, that's what mattered, right? I mean, because that was your perception, was your reality.
Yeah. And we like instinctively knew, we instinctively knew we loved our house, because we moved, when my mom got remarried, we moved from a house that needed a lot of work into a big mansion with a rich man. But his house is still worth the same it was when we moved in, to, you know, 30 years ago. And the house that we lived in is, you know, a multi-million-dollar house. So it's like, your perspective is everything. And you know, and I went to college for acting. A lot of what I know is from exploration and acting. Acting is not something you can do without courage, and it's not something you can do without the ability to connect and to change and to react and to listen. All those skills that we think are important. Much of what I know in life I learned from having children. Most of what I know I learned from suffering. There is a great avoidance of suffering in this culture, and you should avoid suffering. You shouldn't be glad about suffering in your own life. But when you are suffering, you embrace the lesson of it, and the suffering is dissipated. If you try to avoid suffering, it just becomes louder until it is excruciating and then must be dealt with. You can actively, you know, a lot of what I learned, I went to a YMCA camp in Wisconsin. I was a leadership trainee there, and they had a program, you know, sort of a spiritual program at the camp that you would go through. It's called the Raggers program. You get different levels of rags, and there was always very important ceremonies. But I don't know, my perspective comes from, I was always very lucky to have very good friends who were true friends who were good. And I look at my children, and I think the thing I worry about them most is their friends. Is that they're choosing good friends, because that can change you and affect you for a long time. My oldest is going off to Wyoming Catholic College, and their first 3 weeks are spent in the mountains. They go out for 3 weeks. That's their freshman orientation, as they get there and they go out into the mountains in Wyoming for 3 weeks. And I believe that nature, which teaches you suffering, and hiking, which teaches you suffering, I don't think there's any greater teacher than that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a religion in the world. I don't think there's a philosophy in the world. I don't think there's a self-help book in the world that can teach you as much as 3 weeks in the mountains can. You know yourself. You know your loneliness. You know your sorrow. You are disconnected from electronics. You are connected to the magnetic flow of the earth. You are, especially out there, you are ever conscious as you lay your head down to sleep that you could be a snack for a bear.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing makes you quite as primalistically religious as the fear of being eaten by a bear. Because you are just laying there, and every squirrel and every noise you turn it into a bear, and it's not. And you're not really. You're more likely to get struck by lightning when a storm comes. That's when you really need to perk up and make sure you're staying safe. And every step, especially walking on a mountain, it's just walking. That's all you're doing. It's just that if you slip, you could die. So you have to pay attention, and you can't lose focus. And you can get lost, just like life. And so you have to always be orienting yourself, especially if you're off trail. Even when you're on trail, you can get off the trail. There is nothing more disturbing than getting 2 miles down a wash that you thought was the trail, and then checking your map and being like, where am I? And suddenly you're lost, and you're like, oh crap, I'm lost.
Yeah.
I can't panic. I can just start walking backwards. Where did I get lost? But then there's all these other adjustments. Like, am I going to make that place where I can camp? It's a little exposed here. The sun's coming down. I don't have enough water. The next stream is so all of a sudden these little mistakes become semi-life-threatening adjustments that you have to make. My son and I were in Idaho. We were hiking down we were the first ones to go around this trail. The ranger said, tell me how it is. We think it's still snowbound. You may not be able to get through. And we got all the way up, but then in the switchbacks going down, it was snowbound. And so we were trying to cut across the switchbacks, and it was starting to get dark. And it's not life-threatening, but if you're on an incline like this and you're in waist-high snow, trying to get down below where the snow is, and you're starting to lose light, you're either hiking through snow in the dark, which is dangerous, or you're sleeping on the side of the mountain for the night, waiting for it to be light again, which will be an experience. Probably not going to die. You might have some cold toes. But being out in nature, the Japanese call it taking a tree bath. And it sounds cooler in Japanese. But you go out in the forest, you go out in the wilderness, and you feel better. And you learn about yourself. You discover who you are and what matters, and you get cleared away from. I'm desperate for a hike right now. My son is going. I'm picking him up on the 27th in Casper, Wyoming, and taking him to college and getting him settled. And then me and a couple of my other children are going to go out in the woods, go up in a mountain, and I can't wait. I cannot wait. I feel like I'm overdue. COVID has kind of taken away a bunch of the hiking opportunities we had. And so I'm hoping to get out there. But yeah, if anything has taught me more than the nature teaches you more than anything, for sure. Because it doesn't care about your religion. It doesn't care if you're Jewish or Muslim or Catholic or Christian or Baptist or the gay or straight. Nothing matters. None of that matters. Nor does it matter to anybody on the trail. All you care about is the weather and the conditions and the food and the water. It's nobody cares about, like, they care if you're being nice to nature. If people are out there throwing beer bottles around or whatever, there may be some grumpiness, but generally speaking, nobody cares who you are on the trail.
You're putting that on a whole new perspective for me, because I am very much that person. When I feel overwhelmed at something, my husband and I have just discovered it's something very much I have to do. I will run for nature, run to it every time. If I can't get away from my house, because like you said, sometimes there's extenuating circumstances,
Sure.
Then I've got to swing it. Well, my daughter has a swing and I just borrow it. But I go get on her swing. Yeah. And that seems to be my happy place. And like you said, it allows me to just focus in fully on what is really, truly important, or whatever is really bothering me, or really just release it and let it go. We're feeling the same way, feeling cramped up. I want to go to the river really bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wonder, I was talking about this, it makes me wonder, I know a lot of people probably do the same thing, and I wonder how many of them actually realize what they're actually doing when they're doing this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it looks so surface, but it's really a lot deeper than that. And I think when people stop looking at it surface level and really look at it on a deeper level, then they start to really, when they can start to really feel it, they can let go and really feel it. And I think, like you said, have these momentous occasions, that I don't think you can get anywhere else, like you said, because there's always something stimulating when you're out, when you're not in nature and things like that. But in nature, you're stimulated by nature, and that's it. It's like, it's real life stuff there.
Yeah. You're freed up a lot for sure.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. So let's see, we talked about certain things you do to keep your mindset healthy. Now you said that you teach a lot. So
I do.
Yeah. What is up with all that? Cause you've been teaching me today.
I've been a teacher since I was 15. So that was 14, 15, started teaching at Camp Minneconne, and I've considered myself a teacher ever since. I was a principal of a small private Catholic school for 7 years. I taught in the foster care system. I've taught in the prison systems. I've taught acting. Currently I teach acting online. I teach a voice, dialect, and character class. I teach improv, scenes, monologue, and Shakespeare class. My buddy Andy Field teaches the business of voiceover class. I'm starting an improv class with Jonathan Pitts, who is the founder of the Chicago International Improv Festival, and also a Shakespeare, straight up Shakespeare class. So it's a lot of online acting classes. I sort of am capitalizing on everybody being stuck at home and having already taught on Zoom for 3 years prior to this.
Oh wow!
So it's a skill set I've already developed. But it's I am of the mindset that the you can teach the product or the outcome. You can teach what the good outcome is, or you can teach the process.
Absolutely.
And the process is always, it's that I think it was Covey says, you sharpen the saw, and Abraham Lincoln said, I think it's a quote from him too. If I had 2 hours to chop a tree down, I would spend 90 minutes sharpening my saw. So that you are more effective when you are focused on your habits and your routines and your, in anything you want to do.
Yeah.
You excel when you I talk about practice. I say practice is good. It is good to practice. I said, but it can be horrible to practice if you're practicing incorrectly. So it should really be correct practice, or beneficial practice is good. Sometimes people will substitute amount of time and effort towards something and think that's going to get them the goal. But if you're doing the wrong things, not necessarily the wrong things, but if you're doing them in the wrong way, you can end up not going anywhere. Swimming is another good example. Swimming, like, you can put a lot of energy into swimming. You can do a lot of stuff to try to make yourself go forward, and you're not going to go anywhere. Because swimming is about relaxing, and it's about the motion through the water and sliding yourself through that water. Extra energy and extra movement is not going to help you go anywhere.
As my daughter would say, she would say, you must become one with the water.
It's true.
She told us that the other day at the bowling alley. I am too, honestly. It's kind of funny. We have so many odd things in common that I haven't even brought up that you said, and my little things go off. But I also have a thing with water. I also almost drowned when I was younger, but someone also told me one time when we were out on a big church thing and we were out in the middle of the lake, and we asked how deep the water was because we were getting off to just swim around in life jackets around the boat. And someone said that it was like 4 or 5 giants high. Well, in my mind, I don't even know the name. I guess it was maybe Goliath. There's an old Mickey Mouse cartoon with this huge giant, and he's David and Goliath is what they're doing.
Right.
So in my little child brain, I literally saw about 10 giants as tall as the tallest tree you could imagine in your life, standing on top of each other, like feet on top of head. You know what I mean? Like literally standing on top of each other. That's how deep I imagined the water was. And now I've realized that has manifested into, I don't like to see things sink in water. It gives me the jeebies. Like the Titanic, it's like a train wreck for me watching the Titanic. Because I'm like, I'm glued to it because I want to see it. But I have that weird hang up with watching things in the water. Yeah. It's
I understand.
Weird thing how that happens. Ooh, I don't know how you guys feel about that episode, but I'm really moved. I mean, I was speechless so many times listening to him and so just really caught up in what he was saying. I don't even think that a lot of it even connected at the time. But I know that it was impactful on everybody here that worked directly on this episode, in fact. So I'm so appreciative to Chuck Huber for coming and touching my life and us around here, and for giving so many gems of wisdom for us to be able to hold on to, and to be able to take moving forward. Um, Thank you so much for explaining about signal emotions. That's something that I think that I have not been very masterful of. And so I'm going to take a lot of the advice that you gave and I'm going to put it to good use. And I'm hoping that a lot of you that are listening do the same. So once again, thank you so much, Chuck Huber, for sharing your wisdom with us and your experiences. May I see you in another lifetime. And I want to thank all my listeners again for tuning in. Like I said, keep those numbers going up so we can take number one, baby. All right. I'll see you guys next week.